this is a story with a lot of moving parts. It's been tough for the media, I think, to piece it together, and put it in the bigger perspective because of the way that it trickled out. But now that all the facts are out there, I mean, this is as damning a political as you could possibly imagine. It appears, that at best, serious incompetence on behalf of the ATF led to the death of American law enforcement agents, and why no one wants to get to the bottom of this and hold people responsible is beyond me.
It really is. And I remember when I was working in news, and these are the kind of stories you used to wrap your hands around. I mean, here you have a Border Patrol agent was killed. You've got thousands of guns that were allowed to go across the border. You've got agents who have put their lives on the line to get this thing to try to get to the truth. And don't you think it's because the media, I mean, the way I look at this, the media can't blame the gun dealer in this one. They can't. It's the administration who let these guns, these thousands of guns, go across the border.
Yeah. No, that's part of it. I mean, I think the other part of it is it's really hard to get at the motivation for this. I mean, clearly this was a deliberate strategy on behalf of the ATF, but at the same time, it's hard to imagine what their possible, legitimate law enforcement aims were with this operation. So, I think that's part of it. I mean, the media is very much in search of a motive and there's lots of other things they haven't really looked into as part of this scandal. I didn't really touch on it in this particular article, but for instance, the Obama administration's close working relationship in the early days of their administration with the Mexican government, the fact that the Mexican government appeared to be gearing up to retain U.S. law firms to sue U.S. gun manufacturers. I mean, I think there are some things in this story that do point toward political motivations, but they're hardly smoking guns, and the press hasn't, discovered those things or isn't interested in them. So I think that's what, the next step in this scandal, because I think a number of mainstream media outlets actually have been pretty decent at, reporting on the ongoing details of the scandal. They just haven't been piecing everything together and looking for the bigger motivation.
Yeah, and you've got a president here who may be worried about his image in Mexico. They didn't even know about it. Mexico had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, actually, I think that might even be an open question too. And again, this is not one of these things that press isn't interested in. For instance, the Mexican Attorney General and some of these other people have come out saying they didn't know what was going on with the operation, but it was also clear that the Obama administration in the early days was working very closely with the president of Mexico on this issue of supposedly illegal guns getting to Mexico. And even though we now know that the number, or the 90% figure that the ATF was floating in terms of 90% of U.S. weapons, being 90% of all guns used to commit crimes in Mexico being, U.S. origin, was a fiction. But there clearly was a close working relationship with the Mexican government. The question is, how high does this go, both in the Mexican government and in the U.S. government? And we need to explore that, because that would explain the political motivations, which is what is really missing from this story.
Well, and everybody points to this, but if this was the Bush administration, this would be a headline every single day because of the players involved. I mean, you look at what's going on, the cover-up and the stonewalling. The most recent one, you've got President Obama's attorneys sending a letter to members of Congress to let them know that National Security Advisor Kevin O'Reilly, now with the State Department, may not be available to do an interview by the end of the month like they had asked, to find out what he knew about ATF, because they have these emails about this operation, because they say the White House says he's, quote unquote, currently on a previously scheduled assignment to Iraq. Now, how convenient is that?
Well, it doesn't look good, certainly. And I think that I have to credit House Oversight Committee Chairman Darrell Issa and the Senate Ranking Member of the Judiciary Committee Chuck Grassley for doing a really good and dogged job pursuing this. But at some point, it's just got to get that next level. You're right; they got to get these people, in front of the Congress. They've got to, file the necessary subpoenas and do the necessary, investigation to really get at what's going on here.
And then you have these audio tapes. And congressional investigators fired off this angry letter to the Justice Department, letting them know they weren't too happy about the fact that the DOJ turned over these audio tapes of conversations between a gun shop owner who was cooperating with ATF in this operation and with the ATF case agent to the U.S. Attorney's Office instead of giving them to Congress. And last week I was talking with Senator Grassley, and he made it very clear. He said, we'd like to call this Agent Hope McAllister to testify before us, and there's no question that this move is going to obstruct their investigation.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's, definitely a problem. I mean, but, again, we've seen this at every step of the way, whether, remember, with, Kenneth Melson, the acting ATF head, was, basically prevented from cooperating with congressional investigators. I mean, it's very clear the Justice Department is making attempts to stonewall this investigation. And, again, this is another thing that should, make, light bulbs go off above the heads of, people in newsrooms everywhere. I mean, if they're not guilty and they claim that this is just a really stupid law enforcement operation gone wrong and there's no suspicious political motivation that, we need to be worried about, they're doing a really good job of making it look like they're not telling the truth here about a lot of things that are going on with this scandal.
I mean, can you imagine being the Terry family and just like Border Patrol Agent Brian Terry's mother said, justice to us is not beating around the bush. I mean, that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, the thing is, like I said in the editorial, I don't want to demean what mother has gone through because, man, that woman deserves answers if anyone ever does. But, so does every single American.
Absolutely.
It now appears that our tax dollars were directly used to purchase guns to hand off the Mexican criminal. I mean, this is absolute insanity. I cannot think of a, worse government, abuse in terms of, a law enforcement operation. So, somebody needs to be held accountable, and that's the bottom line.